Hey guys, it's like Iris here, and this is not going to be another normal episode of EZBake or mini muffin lessons. I still don't know which one I'm going to put this in as of me recording this, but I wanted to do kind of more of a lecture style video because I was thinking about this the other day, and I thought it would make for a really interesting video. Uh, I wanted to talk about something in the greater knowledge of graphic design that kind of can go unnoticed sometimes, or can kind of be overshadowed by things like, by background design, or maybe, just simple stylistic things that we definitely think about more often than this, as far or that we normally think more about. And that's typography. Typography is something that can go kind of unappreciated when really it's something that can tie design together. It can even be the focal point of said design. uh, and I think that's really cool, and I think that a lot of graphic designers can struggle with this, including myself. I struggle with it all the time. I'm always trying to think of ways to make the text interesting. That's probably one of my biggest things as far as my designs go. But I think there's a lot of different there's ways we can think about it to make it a lot easier to understand good typography, or ways to make it more interesting for ourselves. And I think we have to stop thinking about it as a way, as something just to read, right? As something that conveys a word. When, really, we don't think of graphic design. I feel like a lot of people don't think of it as like a traditional art form, which, and it's not. It's pretty a lot of digital stuff, but it's still an art form in a way. Well, no, not even just in a way, but it just is. It's definitely an art form, and I think that we should think about it like artists, right? So whenever you talk to a lot of artists and you ask them, how do you get used to drawing some of these? These are not things you normally, see, or shapes that you normally see a lot. And they just go break it down into basic shapes, or what looks nice together. And I think that's something that's we could use to think about typography in a lot more of a simple way, and think about it more conducively to making good, clean designs. You know, uh, they don't. Like I even talked about this in the first episode of EZBake, where I complained about people just putting blank, fonts on their designs and on their banners, and it looked terrible because there's nothing going on, because they're thinking of it as just a way to have words on screen that you need to convey. Of course, if you have a Twitter banner, you probably want your name on it. You probably want, if you're sponsored, you want your sponsor on it or whatever. But these you want it to be interesting. And there's a lot of really good graphic designers that you can follow on Twitter, like New York's Finest or Express or Sesso, who do a really good job of this, of making the type clean, but still not, draws the eye a little bit. And you know, on top of that, people choose fonts that aren't entirely fitting for what they want to do. And I think thinking about graphic design like more traditional art forms is it also helps this, because when we think of those, like music or like painting or whatever, you think, what do I want the viewer or the listener to feel? And I think we should think more like that as far as graphic design goes. If we're like, let's say, I work with a lot of FGC people, a lot of fighting game community people, because I'm part of it, and and some of them know me, and they commission me. They commission me for banners and stuff, and it's like, you want a fitting design for their character most of the time, because that's how you identify people in FGC. You go, oh, I know you. You play this character, or you play that character. You're famous for this game or that game. That's a really that's something that they like worked into those designs a lot. If they're an Asuka main in Tekken, they probably want Asuka on it somewhere with their name or something. Same goes for any character, any game. Uh, and I think that using your knowledge of typography, or your knowledge of shape rather, and what shapes can convey, uh, is important to making good typography decisions in those banners, right? Because, like, let's say I'm making one for me, which I've done quite a few times. I play Josie. I probably want to put Josie on it. Josie in Tekken, if you're not aware, is not a very menacing character. That's not her purpose. But she is a very fun, bouncy character. A lot of bright colors in her design. So that's what I try to work in. I try to work in the bright colors of her design. I try to work in things that fit the personality of the character, because whenever you put her on there and against that backdrop, they need to go hand in hand. You can't have super menacing, weird, like super menacing, mean looking fonts that are real sharp and angular against a really key, like a Kirby, you know. But if you do that for Kazuya, or you do that for Jin, or you do that for Fakuma, it might make sense. So it's important to make these decisions based on how you feel it flows together, you know. So I don't want to choose these really clean, sleek, minimalist Apple-like designs most of the time for characters that are like the opposite. If I did, like I said, if I did that for Josie, it wouldn't look right. It would look kind of weird, kind of off. But if I did that for Kazuya, well, that makes sense. Kazuya in the story is an evil, like, corporate CEO of the Mishima Zaibatsu, at least for a little bit. So it makes sense to do that kind of design idea for Kazuya, and to do very, simple but, sleek looking lettering without maybe a lot of pop in design. But if I do that for Lucky Chloe, it's not going to look right either. Making Lucky Chloe like an Apple design, I mean, you could, and it could look good. I'm not saying you can break all these rules, but I'm saying as a general rule, fitting your character idea goes a long way. You probably, for Lucky Chloe, you want to do something fun and vibrant, and not as not dark looking, but as sterile looking, if that makes sense, right? You want to do something more along the lines of, look at the Konosuba logo. There's colors everywhere. It's not a very it's very bubbly looking letters. A lot of pops out at you. That's something you would probably want to do for Chloe or Panda or whatever. But for characters like Kazuya, or real edgelords like Jin, you probably want to do something a little more that fits their character. But like I said, you can do these all, you have all the freedom. It's just important to understand, I think, what works and what doesn't, because there's a lot of ways to make things that otherwise wouldn't work just by your own imagination. So I think those are kind of cool things to keep in mind. And along those lines, typography is not a one-way deal. It's a pretty open idea. You don't have to type horizontally. You can type vertically. You can treat these letterings like part of a design, like it's almost a pattern, right? Because that's what it is. If you don't think about what it says or anything, it's a pattern. And what do you do with patterns? You use them to kind of embellish things or whatever. So you can really use your typography to your heart's content, as long as you know what the possibilities are. But I feel like they can box themselves in with kind of traditional ideas. But I think if you really let it run free, you can come up with some amazing designs. I mean, like I said, people like Express, which I'll leave his channel in the description because it's so helpful, makes these amazing designs, and is not a very straightforward with typography. Sometimes he'll mix and match fonts, or he'll double layer them and scoot one down a little bit to create some depth, or he'll type vertically to make kind of a weird, raining text effect kind of pattern. Treat it like any other art form. You're not limited to one font either. Express does that very well as well. It'll mix and match 6 or 7 fonts in one word. Add backgrounds to some of them, or I'll make some only the stroke and set the fill to 0. There's a whole lot of really cool stylistic choices that you just, that you can incorporate. And see, I know like this could sound like a lot of options at once, which it is. But like I said, use it in the right context. If you want something that looks with very mixed match and you might be doing a Persona background. Let's say the Persona 5 aesthetic is kind of like the Phantom Thieves notes that they'd send out, the calling cards. you know, you read those and it looks like a ransom letter. Sometimes that's a really cool design choice to use. So you can, you know, definitely work it into a persona design if you so wish. You know, and that's really a good way to not limit yourself and kind of open your mind to the possibilities. Or I made a Ray design based off of some of Express's old work and some other pictures I saw. I made this really cool Ray banner, and it's almost, you know, it pretty much is exclusively treating the text like patterns and like designs to throw in the back, not necessarily like it should be out front and center to read every time, but that it's something to kind of embellish with. So there's so many ways to make your designs interesting with text alone, you know. So I think that if you think about your typography and you think about graphic design in, you know, the same ways that you know, more traditional artists would think, I think it can be very beneficial and can help you develop a unique style. Thank you for listening to me. Give kind of a lecture, at least, or my opinions on ways to look at typography for this lesson. If you want to follow me on any social media, it's just at Hakairis, all caps normally. Unless it's on Instagram, they don't allow all caps, so it's just Hakairis. If you don't know how to spell it, it's on my channel name, so you should look at that. Please subscribe and follow my Twitch, where I stream, and I do Photoshop streams on occasion. But please do follow me and help support the channel. I appreciate it. Like I said, I'll be leaving all the examples I use in this video in the description, and I'll leave their channels if they have them, and I'll try to keep all that open to everybody so you guys can learn just like I have, because I'm mostly self-taught. But like I said, thank you for watching. I'll see you guys later in the next video.